Hello, I'm Hal Ottaway with the Wichita Postcard Club, and it's time once again for another Postcard of the Week. 10 years ago, in 2011, we had Terry Watt from Tulsa, Oklahoma, was our speaker at our annual Wichita Postcard Club show. We always have a speaker every year who gives us a presentation on Sunday morning, kind of early before the postcard show starts itself. But Terry was very kind and jumped at the chance, really, when I asked if he might be interested in doing something for our December postcard club meeting. And he said, you bet he would. And so it turns out that what we're going to be seeing this coming Saturday is December 4th. That is our next Wichita Postcard Club monthly meeting. So be here for that. Be here about 1:45 Central Standard Time on Saturday afternoon. And that'll get you in a few minutes early and we can say hello and wave and all that. And then we'll start the meeting at 2 o'clock. But do join us for that club meeting, and it'll be a lot of fun. Terry gave a presentation 10 years ago at our show, and it was on Disney, Walt Disney, the Disneyland and Disney World, and it was just a knockout, and it was very, very well received. And then when I asked him about doing this for this club meeting, he had all new material that he's added in the last 10 years. You know how we collectors are. We keep on, we keep looking for, we try to fill in the pieces and the missing links, so to speak. So Terry, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about this coming Saturday, and then maybe even showing us a postcard. We'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hal, and thanks also to the Wichita Postcard Club for offering me this opportunity, this soapbox to get up on and talk about my collecting interest. I mean, who would not jump at a chance to share what they've been passionate about the last 20 years or so now with others? And so again, thank you for that opportunity. I am going to quit talking and share my screen. The card that you're looking at right now is one of the ones I'm going to be talking about this Saturday, although perhaps not quite in this as much detail as I'm going to go into it today. This is an example of what I call an incidental Mickey. It's a photograph that was taken for some other purpose that just happens to have a Disney character in it. In this particular case, it's Mickey Mouse, and they've thoughtfully labeled Mickey Mouse for us, sitting at the center of the card. Obviously, it's a doll of some sort or a statue of some sort. So this postcard was attractive to me for a couple of reasons. First of all, this is one of the areas that I collect, which are incidental Mickeys, which are these sorts of photographs. And then another reason that this was attractive to me is that I've always been a wannabe musician. So whenever we get a card that checks both of those boxes, it's one that I'm definitely going to try to get if I can. So looking at this card now, you see some sort of interesting things about it. One of the big questions that I always am going to have to try to answer is, when was it done? When was this postcard printed? And there's nothing on here that specifically gives a date. There's no postmark, there's no handwritten message or anything else. So one of the overarching things that I always look for when I get one of these cards is, when was it done? Is it early? My interest is mostly in very early Disney incidental Mickeys and other postcards. So if we look at this card, we notice that it's in black and white, and it also has hand lettering of some words on there. And anyone who's looked at real photo postcards for any reason recognize that that's indicative of something that was probably a pretty early postcard. So the postcard here is of a band. Again, that was what drew me to this card. And you notice if you can read the text at the bottom, it's the Arizona Kid and his Texas Rangers. And then it has cowboys and cowgirls. The individuals who are in the band, though, don't seem to be using their real names. If you look at the character who has the upright bass on the on the left end, he's labeled as Olive Oil, although clearly the gender isn't right. Next to him, moving from left to right, we have Popeye. Well, Pop space I, E-Y-E, obviously intending to represent the cartoon character Popeye. And a little further over, there's Wimpy. He's the third from the right, who also was a character in the Popeye cartoons. Now, there may be other names here that correspond to cartoon characters that I don't recognize, but those I recognized. So we look at this card and we say, okay, how old is it? Well, one of the first things we looked at, again, was black and white and it's hand letter, but there's something else. I've reproduced the back over on the right side of the card. Look at the stamp box. The stamp box has AZO in the stamp box with a square at the corners. Well, the internet says that Kodak sold this particular back of cards from about 1928 to 1940, which is helpful, but doesn't really narrow down the date as much as I would like. I probably could have guessed it was sometime before 1940. And the question is how early, because earlier is better. Remember that Mickey was born, became a movie phenomena in 1928. So for my collecting interest, the earlier we can find a card to that 1928, the better. So looking at this card, what can we tell? Well, most of the instruments are conventional. Like I said, there's an upright bass, so you can see a banjo, you can see Sleepy Willie has an accordion. Wimpy is playing a banjo. All those are pretty conventional. But then I noticed down there, actually also noticed there's a couple of cowbells, one between Mickey's legs and one just to the left of him. Obviously this band, if it is a band and not an acting troupe, doesn't play classical music, not much call for a cowbell. If you look at just to the left of Mickey and to the right of Popeye, there's a jug, which understand that people use jugs in bands, but then there's something on top of that jug. Well, what is that? Well, I went back and rescanned the card and zoomed it up quite a bit, and I saw it was this. This was after a lot of futile internet searches to try to figure out what in the world this was. Well, once I zoomed it up and had by the way, this is one of the wonderful things about these old real photo postcards. If you go back and look, they have incredible resolution if if they were well done, and this one was. So we zoom it up, and then after I saw this, I realized what it was. It was a kazoo in a form that's not sold today, but certainly it was a kazoo that was sitting on top of the jug. So likely Popeye, one of his roles in the band was to play a jug and to play this kazoo. And why did I think it was kazoo? It was because of that metal resonator or feature that was close to the mouthpiece. And so once I saw that, I suspected that it was a kazoo, and then I went back and confirmed it, asking the internet. All right, so now we go down the path of when was this card published? When was it printed? All right, well, the internet provides the images I'm going to show you on the right. So I don't have originals of any of them. None of them are very high resolution, but I did what I could to see if I could extract some information. Now, this particular card has a 1939 date on it. And it's kind of hard to see, but there's in the middle of the card, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but in sort of to the right of the upright bass, which now apparently Olive Oil is no longer in the band and been replaced by someone else, to the right of the upright bass in the center, there's what appears to be a radio microphone. So I tried to enhance that image and was not happy with the result. I was sort of hoping it would be WCKY, which would have been a Chicago station. but it was not. Instead, the next image that I brought up sort of held the answer to what we were looking at. This was an 8x10 glossy that was sold on eBay, but I couldn't get the actual glossy. All I had was sort of this reduced image thumbnail of it. And the text that came with this glossy, which again, I couldn't get it, it was disappeared, said that this was taken in 1939 in Reading, Pennsylvania. My original thought was that this was probably a Texas or Arizona band, since it was Arizona Kid and his Texas Rangers. It sounds like something out of the Southwest. And certainly, you know, if you look at Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys, you know, they started in the 1920s, and these guys might very well have actually, I think he started in 1934, but these guys may very well be exploiting that, you know, sort of the Texas swing kind of thing is what I thought. And anyway, this was in 1939 at a radio station in Reading, Pennsylvania. Now, there was sort of one thing sort of interesting about this. If you look at it, this is the postcard, and possibly these two were taken at exactly the same time, because almost all of the individuals are in the same location, except for little Willie, who's now seated, as is Popeye, who formerly was on the outer right, and little Willie was on the outer left. Now they're both seated now. So it looks as though it could very well have been the same photographic session and just moved them in for purposes of composition of the photo. Another thing that's sort of interesting is if you look at the guitar player that's seated down on the left, and the accordion player that's seated on the right, and also smiling Johnny, who is third from the right, who's standing, apparently all of them got some bad news between the first and second photograph because they quit smiling. But anyway, this is 1939, again, Reading, Pennsylvania, which seems to say this band was centered there. The next image I found on the internet was another postcard, this one from 1940, and notice again that the band composition has changed. On the far left is Pancake Liz, who apparently is playing a marimba. They added a marimba to the band. They have a guitar, again, I have an accordion player, but it's not the same accordion player as before, I don't think. And Popeye, it looks as though he's actually playing his kazoo. So we see him actually holding something or doing something up to his face. We can't really read that too well. And that was in 1940. Again, now we can see it's clearly Reading, Pennsylvania. And finally, I came up with this image in 1941, where almost all of the guys have disappeared, and the Popeye made the cut. The Arizona Kid is there, but the Arizona Kid apparently has replaced most of the guys with gals, and some of the gals are wearing short skirts, which would certainly improve the marketability of the band to certain market segments. Also, we have a Sheriff and Cactus Sam, a ventriloquist. Presumably one of them is the sheriff and the other one's Cactus Sam. We don't know which is which, but this was in 1941. So how does this help us answer the question of when the real photograph was taken? Well, my theory now is that it was taken before 1939, so possibly 1938 or maybe even a little earlier. And the support for that is that it appears that this Arizona Kid, if he was the director of the band, I suppose it could have been Popeye, took a photograph of his band every year. So we have 39, 40, and 41 here. We don't have a 38. So that is one thing. And then the other, which Hal suggested, is maybe the band may very well have disbanded in after 1941 for reasons related to the war. Thanks to Hal for suggesting that. And also I did a search of the Reading Times newspaper, and I found occurrences in the what is happening this weekend section, possibly I think 8 to 10 occurrences, mention of the Arizona Kid and his band between 1938 and 1941, and no mentions after 1941. So likely The first picture was taken in 1938. So that is the postcard of the week. And I'll turn it back over to Hal.
Fine. Thanks. Thanks so much, Terry. You can see the exuberance and the excitement we have with our speaker, and we're all looking forward to seeing the rest of the story this coming Saturday, December 4, for our Wichita Postcard Club December Club meeting. Please be here about 1:45 Central Time. And I know there's people on the East Coast and the West Coast and in between. Check and make sure what is your time in relation to Central Time. And that's easily done on the internet, and just even asking Google, what time is it, so-and-so. But we're from Wichita, Kansas here, and we look forward to seeing you this coming Saturday. And thanks again, Terry, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. See you Saturday. Bye-bye.
You bet.